since June 2015. Earlier, he has worked at PDPU, Parul University, and SSPC Visnagar. He has about 16 years of the academic and research experience. He obtained his doctoral degree from Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay in year 2013. Prior to that, he has pursued his bachelor's and master's degree both from the Faculty of Technology and Engineering, the MS University of Baroda in the year 2002 and 2004, respectively. He has more than 40 publications in the reputed journal and conferences. He has presented his research work in the United States, Australia, France, and Malaysia. He is investigator of the GUJCOST DST Gujarat and Gujarat State's Biotechnology Mission, funded research projects and guiding for full-time PhD scholars. His area of interest are sustainable geotechnical engineering, reutilization of the waste in civil engineering applications, ground improvement and geosynthetics applications, transportation geotechnics, experimental and numerical modeling of soil structure interaction, and geotechnical instrumentation. With this brief introduction, we are in time, and I request Dr. Trudeep Dave to start his lecture on the topic of geotechnical instrumentation.
So, thank you, Professor Solanki, for your brief and introduction. I am grateful to IGS Surat for providing me the opportunity to interact with students and the people who are practicing in the field of geotechnical engineering, and also to have an interaction with them. So this is basically, I feel, a platform wherein we have the opportunity to interact with research scholars, with the students, with the people who are in the field of geotechnical engineering, either as a researcher or as a practitioner. So the topic which was discussed, or like which I am thinking to share or discuss about today, is geotechnical instrumentation. So first and foremost question which everyone will have in the mind is that what is the need of instrumentation? So first of all, we can say that instrumentation is basically required to examine the design philosophy, current design philosophy. Let us say we have designed a foundation, or we have designed a retaining structure, or we have designed an embankment. So as per the design philosophy, whatever theories which are established, we try to uh, design it. But then what is the effect of soil type, what is the effect of loading condition, boundary conditions, what is the effect of providing some sort of inclusions, let for example say geosynthetics like geotextile or geogrid or any geosynthetics, or maybe if we plan to provide a sort of ground improvement to that particular patch, then what is the efficacy of the applied treatment. See, all these things we can study with the help of technical instrumentation. Further, we can try to evaluate different parameters. Okay, when the loading is being applied, what is the effect on stress, strain, pressure, displacement, temperature, acceleration, inclination during various experiments. See, so instrumentation is required for studying the current design philosophy and its effect on various parameters. That is first and foremost. It is also required to monitor the behavior, post-construction behavior or performance of various infrastructures. Okay, so we may come across different structures which are serving that serviceable life. But if something is likely to happen, so we can try to monitor it, that what is the critical parameters which we want to monitor. We can also verify new hypotheses which are being developed over a period, because the theories which are developed are many years ago, and it may happen that because of the new material being introduced, the design philosophy or hypothesis may require to be modified. So the another reason of providing the instrumentation is to see the or to verify the developed hypothesis. Also, it has been observed that several failures are being taking place. So if forensic investigation is required to be done, if we can model it in the laboratory environment, then we can try to see what could be the reason. So that is sort of back analysis which we may plan with the help of instrumentation. So instrumented model study may help in those kind of situation. Also, we can predict the governing mechanism which can be the reason for failure. So that is another very interesting point where we need to use the instrumentation as a tool. And also, so when we want to see that any material which was not there, or there is a combination of material with a new applied methodology and novel technique of construction, all those things, if it is required to be predicted, if it is required to be monitored, the instrumentation can help us as one of the tool, basically, to see what can be done and how it can be helpful to us, right? So this is some introduction I wish to share with you. With this small introduction, I wanted to share my screen with you all and uh, continue our conversation. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So
Sir, kindly make it full screen.
yeah, sure. So see, when we talk about the instrumentation, we may require to do the field plate load test, wherein we may use load cells, LVDT, and we want to see what is the load displacement curve, or what is the load displacement behavior of the material at the site.
It is
Okay,
still
when
not
we
in
say,
presentation mode.
pardon?
It is still not in
Sir,
presentation mode.
presentation mode. Click on full screen. Presentation mode.
Is it okay? No,
Not yet.
not yet. So let me stop sharing. I'll again try to share it. Is it okay now?
Oh, yes, it is.
Yes, sir. It is okay. Just a
Okay.
small button of hide is coming. You can click on that, sir.
Yeah, sure. Fine.
Yes, sir. You may continue, sir.
Yeah, please. Okay. So we may require the to monitor the strains which can occur, which can come on various geosynthetics, because it is one of the novel material and most widely adopted in nowadays all construction activities. So if we want to see what can be the behavior of various geosynthetics, which basically requires to monitor the strains or the extension, and we may wish to use the instrumentation in the form of strain gauges or extensometer. In that condition, we may also have seen that various laboratory studies which require the displacement transducers or accelerometers been used during the shake table test or during the dynamic loading test in the laboratory environment as well. So it has large gamut of applications, basically ranging from laboratory scale to field scale. And that is the reason why we want to understand the appropriate or apt use of the instrumentation, considering what is the application we are looking about. Okay, so the outline of my presentation is fundamentals. What is sensor? What are the functions of sensors? Systematic approach for instrumentation. Sensors for measuring various physical quantities. So we can group them based on the working principles. So electrical sensors or piezo sensors or MEMS based sensors or fiber optic sensors. So first and fundamental question, what is a sensor or what is an instrument? So we can say that a sensor is a converter, basically, that measures a physical quantity and converts it into a signal which can be read by an observer or an instrument. What are the physical quantities in which a civil engineer, or in particular a geotechnical engineer, is interested? So we may say loading. So varieties of loading, like overburden pressure is there, or overburden loading, which can convert into gravity force, which can be lateral thrust or wind loading. It can be a seismic loading or traffic loading, or any uh, dynamic load, which can be blast or any other thing. So loading source, depending on the loading source, we may require to monitor how much load is being acting on the structure. Then structural response to that particular loading. So because of the applied load, what is the strains which are occurring on the structure, whether it is like a tensile strain or compressive strain, displacement if it is taking place, then how the displacement is taking place, what kind of like deformation if it is taking place, or bulging is been taking place, then we want to monitor it. And in many situation we may use inclinometer or tilt meter to see what is the response of the structure. And when we apply some sort of dynamic load, in those conditions we may need to monitor the acceleration which has been applied as a loading, if possible to monitor, and what is the response of the structure or geotechnical structure rather, I would say, in those situations. What are the environmental effects on the structure? So if we want to monitor that, it can be temperature, humidity, rain, or corrosion effects, which we generally monitor. So after that, if we want to discuss about what are the functions of instrumentation, so this is something which we already discussed. The third part of the first topic is systematic approach to plan any monitoring program using instrumentation. So whether it is a laboratory or field, we may require to monitor it. And what idea or what fundamental we need to look into is we need to define the project condition first. So when we said project condition, it means loading, the boundary, the material, the parameters which we want to monitor, that also will be part of this monitoring or a project condition. So predict the mechanism that control the behavior. So if we apply a vertical load, it is expected that a pressure bulb will generate, and based on the established theory, we can try to provide the sensors in the influence zone or the pressure bulb more, and as we move far, the instrumentation intensity can be varied, can be reduced. Define the question that needs to be answered. So why I'm doing this instrumentation, why this experimental study is important, okay, or why the instrumentation is being used. So if there is no questions to be answered, I think probably we need not to do the instrumentation, okay, but it is not the case. And as we do the model study in the laboratory in small scale or 1G or maybe large scale model study, in all those things, basically we have a set of questions which we wish to answer, and based on that we try to provide the sensors. Define the purpose of instrument, that is again related to the third point. So if the purpose is defined, we can also think of which instrument probably can help us. For example, the scale of measurement, okay. So if I apply loading in the laboratory environment, the scale of loading would be different than if I want to measure the same in the field, okay. So the same instrument which I wish to use in the laboratory may not be apt to used in the field. Another thing, so when we talk about the centrifuge test, we may wish to use the miniature sensors, okay, which are very small in dimension and which will not obstruct the phenomena which is occurring at a NG level, okay. But when the same thing we try to monitor in the scaled model, for example, the dimensions are maybe 1 to 3 meter, and still it is in the laboratory, probably the sensor dimensions are such that they are larger than the miniature, but should not be that bulgy, which obstruct again the phenomena to occur. At the same time, when we talk about the field measurement, the philosophy may be different. In the field, we need to use the sturdy or like equipment or instrument which probably help us to monitor and which is able to compensate all the disturbance which are occurring. Okay, so vibrations or impact which are likely to take place, we need to minimize its effect. However, if it is occurring, we need these instruments should be capable to cope with that condition. Select parameters to be monitored, whether it is stress, strain, pressure, or displacement, or any other thing, and predict the magnitudes of change. One is what is the fundamental minimum pressure or minimum stress or minimum strain which is likely to be there, and what is the magnitude of changes which could occur. So that is also required to be predicted, not exactly, but it will help us to select a proper instrument. So these are sort of required things. So if we say that this instrumentation along with the data logger is basically forming a health structure or maybe geotechnical health monitoring system, basically it consists of a sensory system. Then the sensory system is connected to the data acquisition system. If it is required to be amplified, then some transition may also be there. Basically, it will help us to monitor, and then whatever data we are getting, it will be the input to the computer, and we'll try to do the data processing, and we'll try to analyze what are the results or what are the outcome which we are getting from the system. And we need to manage the system. Many a time what happens, so we get some noise, we get some disturbance, and all those unnecessary things are required to be filtered. And after that, we need to make the decision. Okay, so if it is about the laboratory, we can say that this is the phenomena which is observed. If it is about the field, and if the behavior is not as per the desirable, and if it is exceeding the limits, we need to make some decision in the form of some sort of retrofitting may be required, or some sort of strengthening. Okay, so all those things will come into the picture, but that is a part and parcel of the instrumentation. So if instrumentation is done, we can monitor it more precisely as compared to doing the retrofitting once the distresses are visible by naked eye, or once the failure has taken place. So it is better to prevent it with the help of instrumentation than doing the remedies. So based on the parameters which a geotechnical engineer is interested in, we can have strain, load, stress, temperature, displacement, then tilt or inclination, acceleration, corrosion, humidity. These are some of the basic things which geotechnical engineers or geo-environmental people are looking into. And based on that, we have a set of sensors which we would like to use to measure these geotechnical parameters. Based on the physical quantities which we want to measure, and the operating mechanism, the sensors can be grouped into four type of sensors. First one is electrical sensors. The second one is piezo based sensors. The third one is MEMS sensor, and the fourth one is the fiber optic sensors. So out of these four, most of the geotechnical studies which are ongoing in the laboratory like emphasizes or uses, rather I would say, the electrical sensors. So let us begin with that. So these electrical sensors, if we say, then in that strain gauge is one of the mainly used sensor. This, but if we try to group strain gauges, these strain gauges can be foil tap strain gauge, which is again widely used type of strain gauge. Second is vibrating wire strain gauge, and the fiber optic strain gauges. So this fiber optic part we will discuss at a later stage in this conversation. But if we talk about the foil gauge, a foil type strain gauge, basically it consists of different things. So one is called grid width, second is grid length, then the gauge leads or the leads which are to be connected with the data acquisition system with the proper cables is coming out, and the base length consists of the length of the sensor, whereas the grid length is the sensory part of the strain gauge. So the philosophy of this particular sensor is that when some change or deformation takes place, the electrical resistance is taking place. So the strain gauges are having the or offer the electrical resistance, generally 120 ohms or 350 ohms are the resistance ranges. And whenever some extension is taking place, for example in the geotextile or geogrid, based on that the gauge length would change a bit, and it will change the resistance, and that resistance which is changed, it is proportional to the amount of strain which is applied. So this is a sort of principle of working. Many a time these foil tap strain gauges are converted into Wheatstone bridge circuits so as to get the precise measurement. If we talk about the other type of strain gauge, they are vibrating wire strain gauge. They have a thin steel wire which has been anchored between the two ends, and this wire vibrates due to the excitation. If some load is being applied or some pulse is being provided to it, it will vibrate, and then whatever resonant frequency is there, it will try to catch that. The benefit of vibrating wire sensors is that it can transfer the data over a long distances, on the contrary to foil type gauges which has a limitation. So we may get the signal deterioration over the length. So longer is the cable, there may be some chances, some scope that the signal may be lost or signal may be deteriorated. But in case of vibrating wire, we can get a sort of better data as an output. But the disadvantage is that it is bulkier in the size. Okay, so this foil type strain gauge are very small and they can probably be used at several places, on the contrary to the vibrating wire strain gauge. Now when we talk about this foil type strain gauge, I would like to give bit more emphasis on that because it is one of the largely accepted or used sensors. So when we talk about this foil type strain gauge, it basically consisting of a strain gauge which is connected to a Wheatstone circuit, and this circuit is having 4 resistors, R1, R2, R3, R4. Out of that, one is connected to the strain gauge, and whatever variation is being measured, it will be because of the change in the resistance. Now this particular circuitry may have effect of the temperature changes, or it may have the disturbance rather because of the temperature changes. So that temperature changes can be compensated, can be reduced by connecting another strain gauge with the Wheatstone bridge circuitry, in which the measurement strain gauge is connected to one part and it is stressed, whereas the other strain gauge is kept idle, which is just monitoring the temperature resistance. And then whatever the change is been observed, the proportion in that measurement, one will help to nullify the effect of temperature, and actual quantity which is to be measured can be the output. The third kind of system in which we may wish to use both the strain gauges which are being used as a measurement units. So this will have the benefit over the quarter bridge strain gauge, that this will help, this will have better temperature stability and minimum temperature induced measurement error. Okay, but then over and above that, we may wish to use a system which is more sensitive, and that can be established with the help of connecting 4 elements of the strain gauge to the circuitries. So in that, all the 4 strain gauges are connected which will have minimum effect of the ambient temperature. And also as the number of bridges are more, it will have the greater sensitivity as compared to the quarter bridge or half bridge strain gauge circuits. So this full bridge strain gauge circuit is widely used when we talk about the load cells, when we talk about the pressure cells. So earth pressure cells or the total stress cells, which are having the common functioning parameter as the full bridge circuitry or Wheatstone bridge circuitry with 4 strain gauges many a time, or even more than that, used in the system or in on the sensing surface, which helps to get the output in a more systematic way, more better, with more better sensitivity. The second type of sensor which I wish to discuss is the load cell. We have discussed about strain gauge. Now this strain gauge is maybe many a time used in the load cell, but then there are other types of load cells also. So first type of load cell is hydraulic load cell. So this hydraulic load cell is mainly having a dial, and the gauge or the load cell, like load cell, is having a fluid which is been filled in the sensor. So whatever force is been applied on the sensor, because of that the fluid will be pressurized, and that pressure is been transferred and will monitored with the help of the gauge. It has the accuracy level of 0.25% at full scale. What is full scale? Full scale means the maximum range of measurement rather. So it can help us to get the accuracy in that range. Benefit is that as there is no electric component, it can be used in the areas which are having the hazardous effects and like. Second one is pneumatic load cell, which is basically operating on the effect of the pressure, air pressure application or pneumatic pressure application. So whatever been like pressure is been applied, that is mainly changing the pressure of the air which is below the sensing phase of the load cell. And then there can again the compensatory surface, so that will the nullifying sort of pressure, and to bring the sensing phase back to the normal. Okay, so that is effect of like principle of air pressure to find out the changes in the load. And it has the benefit that it is mainly insensitive to the temperature variations. The third and most commonly used type of strain gauge based load cell is the strain gauge based load cell, which converts the load into electrical signal. As the material deforms, the load cell sensor strain gauges will also get affected, and then it will convert into equal strain in all the sensory parts. So this is what we have seen in the previous slides, the internal connection of the strain gauges. The third type of load cell is piezoelectric type of load cell, in which when the load is being applied on the sensing phase, the charge is generated in the quartz sort of crystals, which are the piezoelectric material, and based on the applied load, the electricity is or electrostatic charge is generated into it, and that charge which is generated is proportional to the applied force. So basically the load is applied, charge is generated, and it is measured, and the changes in the output voltage is measured, which is mainly because of the electrostatic changes. It is widely used for dynamic application. The reason is that the sort of pneumatic type of load cell or the oil based load cell or strain gauge type of load cell may have lag in the response. So it may happen that this load is applied, but immediately instantaneously another wave is coming. So the waves, the signals which are generated and which is logged may have some sort of interference effect, which may not be that predominant in piezoelectric type of load cells, and because of which many a time people use this type of load cell when particularly talk about the dynamic applications. The third type of sensor is called total stress cell or the earth pressure cell. These type of cells are mainly of two types. Okay, so earth pressure cells can be diaphragm type pressure cell, which are already visible on this screen. The second type of load cell, earth pressure cell, is called embedded type of the earth pressure cell. So in the applications such as retaining structure, such as pile surface, in those kind of situation we may wish to use the earth pressure cell. Also in the when we want to find out the pressure immediately below the surface of the foundation, so we may install it in such a way that the sensing phase is in contact with the material on which we want to do the measurement. So that is earth pressure cell with diaphragm type. So it has one sensitive or the active phase, which is consisting of the membrane, and this membrane is having the strain gauge circuitry, which is full 4 strain gauges forming the Whiston bridge circuitry, and then it also has an inactive phase which is comparatively large and forming the rim, which is also visible on the image which I have placed. So this is an inactive surface and this is the active surface. So whatever changes are being monitored, that is through the active surface only. So this active surface should be made flushed with the surface on which the measurement is being done. If the active surface is projecting out, its effect would be different. If it is below the surrounding surface, then also its effect will be different. So we need to put it flush with the surrounding surface, and in that case it will help us to get a proper outcome in the form of earth pressure. So for example, this is the earth pressure cell which is mentioned over which is here, and it is to be used for measuring the earth pressure in the retaining structure. So this is, let us say, the model retaining wall. Then we need to make a groove in order to provide this earth pressure cell to be flushed with it. So here we can see that these are the sensors which are installed flushed with the surrounding structure, and only the pressure will be measured and no other effect would be there. But then in that particular earth pressure measurement system also, nowadays new technologies have been come up in which two polymeric sheets with semiconductive ink are been semiconductive ink printed are being provided or pressed together, in which these printings are such a way that they are orthogonal in both the sheets. So one is having in the length direction, then probably the other one will be in the width direction. One will be forming the columns, then another will be forming the grid. So that is how this tactile sort of pressure cells are formed, and these all smaller parts which are visible over here is called sensors, and there will be a large grid of sensors which are been formed, and when some sort of pressure is applied on this region, as on actual this small sensor will give us the variation in the conductance of this area, and then which is monitored with the help of the special devices which are connected to this tactile pressure assembly. So if we consider this is the tactilus area, this is the connection which helps to monitor the pressure, and this type of pressure out of the sensory diagram we can get. So sort of contour is being prepared, which otherwise is not possible by the conventional or the diaphragm type earth pressure cell. So this is the benefit of tactilus type of earth pressure measurement units. The next type of sensors which we wanted to discuss today is thermometers. So when we say thermometers, conventional thermometer all of us know, but in case of the instrumentation for geotechnical applications, we may wish to use thermocouples or thermistors or RTDs. So these thermocouples are mainly consisting of two cables which are of dissimilar materials, and the electrical potential which is created when the temperature is changed, okay, temperature is varied, then the I would say the reference cable and the another part, that is the having the change in the conductance, so that difference will be the effect of the net temperature difference. So I would say the electrical potential is created when the temperature of one spot differs from the reference temperature. So out of these two, one is called the reference junction and the another is called measurement junction. Now when we say thermistor or RTD or room like resistance temperature detectors, so both are having the similar principles, that the resistance of a material increases when the temperature increases. So the difference between these two is primarily the accuracy, and the second thing is the material which is used to form these sensors. So when we say thermistors, they are mainly made up of ceramics or polymers, and when we talk about the RTD, they are made up of platinum. So that is in the form of material which is used to manufacture it. When we talk about the sensing, the RTDs are having a large temperature range to be monitored, but the accuracy of thermistor is much better than that of RTDs. The next one is displacement sensor, which we also say LVDT or linear potentiometer. So when we say LVDT, these LVDTs are mainly used to measure the relative displacement, and it is on the principle of mutual inductance. So what is that? So initially the core of the sensor is at the central portion of the sensor, and that is called the core, and it has the two secondary coils which is at the periphery of it. When the core is moved either in the outward direction or in the inward direction, which is shown as a motion of measurement, the core is moved, and there is the voltage which is either increased, and the if the core voltage is increased, the coil or the secondary coil voltage is reduced, and that is going to create the voltage difference, and that difference is monitored with the help of this type of sensors. The next type of sensors which we can discuss is tilt beams or inclinometers. Nowadays inclinometers are widely used in the case of earthen dams, in the case of RE walls, reinforced earth walls, with two intentions. One is the once the construction is done, if there is some sort of outward movement in the RE wall is expected, this inclinometer will give us the idea that yes, some movement is taking place, and we need to stabilize it. We need to stabilize the structure, okay, which is mainly the case in RE walls. So several RE walls are feeling the distresses and the deformations, a bulging of the panels in the outside direction, misalignment. All these are because the reinforcement may not be sufficient, or the friction which is offered by the reinforcement may not be sufficient. So pull out or the rupture is the phenomena, and then it causes the RE wall to bulge mainly. So this bulging or the movement can be monitored with the help of the inclinometers. So as we can see over here, a tilt sensor is placed and it is anchored at both the sides. So to measure the displacement, differential displacement or angular rotation in bridges, dams, tunnels, buildings, we can have the tilt beams or inclinometer. It is installed in the horizontal direction when we want to monitor the settlement, right? Such as in the case of tunnels and all. But when we install it in the vertical direction, we want to see the lateral displacement or the rotation, as in the case of RE wall. So these sensors are going to give us the differential displacement, and it has a bubble, precision bubble liquid, which can conduct the electricity, and it is sensed as a resistance bridge. So again, this inclinometer can be nowadays of two types. One is the stationary sensor are generally installed in the structure and then leave it for a longer period. So those kind of units are mainly used when the number of sensing is to be done at very few locations. But when we know that the measurement is required at several locations, we may not use the stationary type of tilt beams, but or inclinometer, but we need to use the sensor which can be inserted with the help of the reference bore, and then after measurement we can bring it out and we can go to the next point, and we can again find the inclination or whatever desired parameter. So the advantage with this kind of sensor is nowadays the applications are being developed. So once we insert at some location, we can get the data on our mobile phone itself. So we can compare with the previous reading, what is the exact reading as on today at varieties of elevations and so on. The next type of instrument is accelerometer, which mainly measures the acceleration induced by force excitation or ambient excitation. So these accelerometers, when we want to select, they should be selected on the basis of frequency, usable frequency response, sensitivity, the base strain sensitivity, the range of dynamic loading which is expected, and what is the thermal transient sensitivity. So all these parameters we need to keep in mind while choosing a sensor. There are mainly four types of accelerometer. One is called piezoelectric type, second is piezoresistive type, third is capacitive type, and the fourth one is servo force balance type. Starting with because it is a part of piezo type of sensor, so we are now moving to the next type of sensor on the basis of the working principle, okay, or operating principle. So that is piezo type of sensors or piezo sensors. So when we say piezoelectric type of sensor, it essentially consisting of a piezoelectric material on which a large mass is being placed on it, and the electric output which is coming out of this is proportional to the applied acceleration. So accelerometer is what happens. So when this body is subjected to any acceleration, due to the inertia, the mass which is mounted on the piezo crystal would compress. Okay, it will either move in the vertical direction or in the horizontal direction. So when it is moving in the vertical direction, it will compress or expand or stretch, and because of which the piezo sensor which is also connected to it will exhibit certain changes, or will exhibit its what I say, the change in the electric charge, and that is been monitored. So it is not suitable for very low frequency ranges in civil engineering application. So when we talk about the geotechnical engineering application, see, piezoelectric type are mainly used for high frequency range, whereas in case of civil engineering, we have the sensors required for low frequency range, okay, and high G levels. So generally we don't use piezoelectric type of sensors in the geotechnical engineering applications, but the piezoresistive type of accelerometer is quite commonly used in the geotechnical engineering application. So this is working on the principle of variation in the electrical resistivity of a semiconductor or a metal is changing because of the applied mechanical strain. So what happens? So we can see over here there is a proof mass, and we have the reference resistors, and we have the piezo resistors. So this suspension beam moves up, or this cantilever beam which is shown over here will move in the direction of applied acceleration. So if we are applying in the horizontal direction, we need to put it in the direction accordingly. If we want to apply it in the vertical direction, we need to put the cantilever beam to allow it to move in the vertical direction. So mainly these sensors are placed in the direction of application or measurement mainly, and it is suitable for low frequency civil engineering application. For example, dynamic loading on the retaining structure or the foundations, or when we apply some sort of load, okay, and we want to see what is the effect of traffic loading on the retaining structure or the ambient or surrounding structure. So these kind of things can be monitored by this piezo-resistive type of accelerometer. Third one is the capacitive type. First one was piezoelectric, second was piezo-resistive. The third one is capacitive type of accelerometer, in which the mass is connected to a spring type of assembly, and when it is subjected to vibration, this mass will move in the upward direction or in the oscillating way, okay, and this mass is connected with two capacitor plates. So because of the vibration, the moving mass alters the distance between the two capacitor plates, as one is connected with the mass whereas the other one is a stationary one, and based on the displacement which this capacitor plate takes, the capacitance changes, and the electrical current or the voltage is monitored in accordance to that. These piezo-resistives and capacitive type of accelerometer are adequate for our flexible civil engineering structures, such as what we can mainly work on. So it can be earthen embankment, it can be RE wall, it can be foundation, it can be piles. So we can have a wide varieties of application for this. Their capacitive type are very accurate and appropriate for low frequency range. Fourth type of accelerometer is force balance type of accelerometer, which has an mass which is unbalanced mass, and it also has the position detector of the mass, an amplifier to amplify the signal, and an electromechanical system. So when the acceleration is applied to this, the mass will move either upward or in the downward direction compared to the null position, and the position as it is varied, it is monitored by the position detector, and the current is generated accordingly. So mainly it is called force balance accelerometer. Has high accuracy and low hysteresis after each cycle. The next type of sensor, so we have started with the electrical type of sensors, then the second one was piezo type of sensor, the third one is MEMS type of sensors, micro electromechanical system of like sensors. This type of sensors, when we try to use, these are generally found in the dynamic loading applications. Okay, so here we can see the accelerometer, MEMS type accelerometer, which has a proof mass or a body. It has a movable plate and the fixed plate, okay, in two different locations. So based on its anchor point, the spring will extend or compress, and depending on the acceleration, and it will monitor the movement of the movable plate with comparison to the fixed plate. So this is a sort of schematic, but in actual they are very small in the dimension, and for this a sort of system is to be followed. Okay, so for any application, this MEMS type of sensors can be different. So what people generally do is that concept of new device whenever is there. So this is a type of flow which they provide, and final testing is done on the derived sensor. So this is quite interesting to see, as the sensor consisting of deposition of material to formulate a pattern and the removal of excess pattern, and that we need to calibrate it before the actual use is being done. And it has a large gamut of application. So they are used in asphalt pavements, they are used for concrete pavements and the bridges, they are used in the foundations, and the type of measurement it can help us. So in the resilient modulus, in the pavement roughness, temperature. So a large varieties of measurement, MEMS type of sensors can only related to highways. Depending on the application, we can also think of what other measurement we would like to have. Next type of sensor is called optic fiber or fiber optic sensors, which mainly work on the principle of the light which is been moving. Okay, so that light response of the material to the movement of or motion of the light is being measured. So this fiber optic sensor are useful for strain, temperature, pressure, and other measurements as well. And on the working principle, we can classify basically into two categories. One is called point sensors, and the second is distributed sensors or DOFS. These point sensors can be classified into intensity modules, interferomagnetic, fiber optic, and spectrometric. So these are some of the sensors which are slowly and gradually getting its acceptance, and it is still under the research. Okay, so in which application, how much accuracy, and what is the reliability of this sort of sensor. So people are still working on this type of sensors. So FBG, for example, is one of the widely used type of sensors when we say health monitoring of any system. So nowadays FBG has shown its acceptance, but then also for laboratory scale measurement, still people have not widely used that, and we are still relying on the electric type of sensors. So as I told, they are consisting of intensity modulus, interferomagnetic, optical fiber, and FBG. So the working principles of these sensors are showed in these diagrams. So FBG type of sensors are showed in this inclinometer. So and these inclinometers are placed at varieties of location on the slopes, in the embankment, and so on. And the casing is to hold it. This is another application of FBG type of sensors on the reinforcement of the concrete pile, on the precast pile surfaces. They are also used in the geosynthetics applications, and when we talk about its application at the site. So in nutshell, these fiber optical fiber sensors are categorized based on the scattering of the sensors, and advantages and disadvantages of these sensors are also that. These slides I would share with you, but the idea behind this is when we say that these sensors are to be used, so the level of difficulty of knowing these sensors increases from first to second to third to fourth. They are grouped into that way. So it is easy to deal with the electric type of sensors, then to deal with the piezo type of sensors, then to deal with the MEMS type of sensors, and the last one is the optic fiber or fiber optic sensors. But as we consider, the strain gauges are being used since more than 80 or 100 years, and as compared to that, these optic fiber sensors are slowly getting its acceptance in the society, in the construction industry. very like in the recent past. So based on the application, we need to consider these all. Okay, so there is no single sensor which can be we can say used in all the conditions at all the places. For example, if I consider the electric type of sensor, it has its own benefits, its own limitations. Similarly, if I talk about the sensors which are used for field, they are very well acceptable in the field, but then the same thing may not be acceptable, may not be used in the laboratory environment. So uh, this is what about the different types of sensor. As a uh, when we say we want to sort of crisp of this particular presentation, we want to carry away, we want to carry with us. So I can say that the wrong instrument in the wrong place provide the information that may be at least like that may be confusing, and it is going to increase the difficulty of us only, or trouble of the us only. So wrong instrument at wrong place is of no use to anyone. Second is, too much instrumentation is wasteful. Okay, so if someone say that I will provide the sensor at every location and it will help me, so it may be a wrong perception, or it may be disillusion to increase the bills. If we provide too little instrumentation, अरे भाई खाली दो ही सेंसर लगा देते हैं because we are in the crunch of fund, then probably it will save the money, but then it will be a false economy, because we need to provide the minimum number of sensors at least, so as to get the profile, so as to get the clarity about, because there are some of the region which are more prone to uh, give the idea about pressure or stress or whatever measurement we are interested into. So depending on where the priority or where the focus is more, we need to provide the sensors at a closer intense like at closer spacing or in more intensity, and as the zone of importance is changing, so there are some zone in the structures which are probably safer than as compared to the zone which are more prone to sort of damage or danger. So we need to orient the instrumentation in that way. Then third one is, every instrument which is installed, we should have a thought process behind that. So what is the intention for this particular sensor, why I am using this? Okay, so if we understand that, if we know that, then probably we can choose a right type of sensor at right place, and we can try to use it rather. Otherwise what will happen, so if we don't choose a sensor appropriately, then we may not get the results which is desired to be obtained out of that exercise. So for that, there is a rule of 10th which people say we need to adopt. So what is the rule of 10th? People say that the rule says that if I want to measure a variation, let us say, or in the displacement or in the load, if that is of unit 1, so let us say 1 kilonewton is the load which I want to measure, then I need to have at least 1/10 of the sensitivity, like 1/10 of the measurement accuracy to be there. So if 1 kilonewton variation is expected to be there, okay, so 1/10 of the measurement should it be precisely monitored. So that is something called rule of 10. Another example is, so if I want to have a sensor to monitor the accuracy of even 1 mm, then probably I need to use a sensor which will help me to give the displacement to the accuracy of 0.1 or even better. So that is how we need to choose any sensor. So if the displacement range is too low, then there is no point in using the displacement sensors, but we need to choose another type of sensor which probably help us to get more better outcome. So that is how we need to look at a particular sensor when we need to use it. So with this particular slide, uh, I wish to thank all who are present over here, and I'm just stopping the sharing the presentation. But definitely, you may please ask the question which you feel you are having. Also, there is some important points which are worth remembering. I wish to share it with you. So just a moment. Uh, so key to success, when we say uh, we need to predict the mechanism that control the behavior, we need to define the questions that need to be answered, define the purpose of instrumentation, select the parameters to be monitored, predict magnitude of the changes, then devise remedial action, then assign task of design, construction, and operation phase, select the instruments, select the instrument locations, plan recording of the factor that may influence the measured data, establish procedure for ensuring the reading correctness, prepare budget, write instrument procurement specification, plan installation, plan regular calibration and maintenance, plan the data collection, processing, presentation, interpretation, reporting, and implementation, write contractual arrangement for field instrumentation services, procure instrument, install it, calibrate and maintain instruments regularly, collect the data, process and present it, interpret it, report is to be prepared out of the data, and implement the data. So this is called 25 rules or key to instrumentation or success to instrumentation. So this also I wish to share with you all, and I will be sharing with IGS Surat chapter. But as a student, when we try to pursue some research, I think we need to step by step understand it and answer to this question, which may probably reduce our hurdles and will lead to a better outcome out of the research. So with this, I wish to conclude, and I'm again thankful to the IGS Surat chapter. If you have any question, please feel free to discuss. I will try to address, I will try to respond to these questions as per my knowledge.
Is any question from participants?
Sir, there is one question in chat box that kindly throw some light on contactless instrumentation.
Yeah, so contactless instruments are mainly used when we, for example, they are working on a laser principle, or they are optical sensors. So when it is working on the laser measurement, so there is a strip which is been pasted on the device on which we want to do the measurement, and then how the displacement between that markers is taking place, that is being sensed by the light, and then it is been monitored accordingly. So we can say that these are mainly used in the UTMs. So UTMs are consisting of this laser extensometer, or the devices which does not be in contact, do not require to be in contact with the sample, but at the same time they help us to give the details.
Okay, there is one question to be asked by Abdul. I open his mic.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Thank you, sir. So this is Abdul Rafi from Geetanjali College, Hyderabad. I have two questions, sir. One is, what is the effect of moisture or water content on these sensors?
Moisture or water content. So definitely, when we talk about the electric sensors, all these sensors are to be protected. So if during the presentation you may have seen, I would just like to share my screen with you. So there is a sort of coating which we may need to apply, so that the sensors can be protected. So I will share my screen. So yes, so if you can see, so this yellow one is the coating which is applied, and also at the junction of the cable with the sensor, at that location also we need to apply this coating, which will make sure that water will not get into the sensory part or the base instruments like strain gauges and all, and they will be protected from any such variation. Okay, otherwise the moisture may affect the resistance, and many time it will deteriorate or damage the sensor as well.
Sir, the moisture, we are assuming, I think here the moisture is pure water. But what about the effect of the polluted waters or salt water or sea water or something like that?
Okay, so when we talk about the moisture, okay, so once a moisture is to be restricted, okay, so which sensor you are talking about, that is again an important. So if they are strain gauges, if they are pressure cell, if they are load cell, if they are the accelerometer, the idea behind that is we need to protect it from any type of moisture. Now let it be salt water, let it be distilled water. Okay, so the moisture itself has the effect on the sensory part of the instrument, and we need to protect it. Now when we talk about the effect of sort of on the corrosion, right, or corrodability of the let's say steel pile is there, and what is the effect of wastewater and the corrodability, then probably the type of devices which may require to be used will be quite different. Okay, or the salt effect of salt water on the steel pipe which is inserted, that altogether a different sort of exercise. Okay, in that condition, this type of sensor may not be directly used, and people will try to use the sensor which are sort of resistive to all these conditions. So in that, nowadays people are using FBG type of sensors.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And the other question is, what is the effect of durability of the this instrumentation compared with the durability of the structure?
See, we need to first of all define what is the measurement duration. For example, if I am planning to do the laboratory studies, okay, so if I talk about the strain gauge, many a time they are single use type of instrument. I measure the strain and I forget it. I throw it away. At the same time, when I talk about the load cell, probably they are more sturdier, and they can be used at varieties of places at several during several applications. Okay, so the number of repeatable use of a load cell cannot be compared with the strain gauge, which is use and throw type of the instrument.
Yes, sir. Laboratory it is fine, sir. Laboratory is okay, but when it comes to the structure, for example, if we take a structure has a durability of 70 years,
Yes.
that means we need to frequently use this one once its life is over. Is it
Uh,
possible, easily replaceable?
So, for example, if I talk about a sensor which are generally used in the field, for example, inclinometers. Okay, so these inclinometers are used in the earthen dams, or they are used in the RE walls. So
Mario.
when we install it, basically we want to see that what is the performance of the structure in the initial years. The reason behind that is we want to see whether the structure is good at the performance as compared to the design philosophy which is adopted. For example, some BS code is used while doing the construction of RE wall, or some FSWA guidelines are being used during the construction of RE wall. Probably we need to see that what is the usable life of the structure. So if usable life of the structure is 25 years or 30 years, this is the usable life. But the major distresses which this type of structure exhibits are within the initial few years or few months of the uses, because then it is going to derive an equilibrium wherein the friction is almost done, unless and until there is some sort of moisture invasion into the structure, or some localized failure is taking place. Then also then again it is going to affect the stability of the structure. Otherwise, in the initial period of the after construction, the prime uh, monitoring is done in that particular period. and some of the instruments are install and forget. So they are going to send the data after every, let's say, 1 hour or after every time to the cloud, and then from that cloud you can sit in the that can be accessed by sitting in the office itself. So this is the philosophy which people are using for structural health monitoring. So they mount the sensor on the, for example, railway bridge, and then they have a container or a case which is at one of the abutment, and then all the sensing part is connected with that particular logger, and that logger is having a chip which is sending the data with the help of some sort of sender, and that it is received by the office. So that is sort of continuous monitoring. So what is the purpose? That is important. What is the parameter which you want to monitor? That is important. And what is the design life of it? So the behavior of the structure changes from one to other based on the design life, based on the design philosophy.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I have one more question, but if permission is there, then I will ask. Otherwise, I will raise the question later.
Maybe Solanki sir knows it better.
You may ask, no problem.
Sir, the last question is the most of these strain gauges and all these instrumentations are obtained from the abroad, I hope. And what about the service or any kind of requirement or accessibility of these sensors and everything whenever we need? Otherwise, indirectly, is it used only for government buildings or even private buildings also, private structures also?
It depends on the budget which has been allocated. So if a budget part is there for the continuous monitoring, definitely people would like to go for a continuous monitoring. But if the budget is the constraint, major of the construction activity is the budget. Okay, so if we are having a tight in budget, then probably we may not use the monitoring we may not use the instrument during the monitoring, or once the construction is done, we accept that it is going to be in the service for the design period. Okay, so once one part is called the continuous monitoring, the second part is called the accepting that it is going to be there during the service period. So when we say that we are accepting that which is there in the service during the service period, with that intention only many a time factors are being involved into the design. So when we say factor of safeties are being used, that is to take care of extra additional load being there, okay, to take care about some uncertainties, and also to take care about any sort of extra or the load which are not considered during the design. So all those things are being taken care by the factors. But when we say the next part of your question was are the sensors being available in the India? So definitely these sensors are widely used in IITs by various professors during the research, like accelerometer, strain gauges, load cell, potentiometer, earth pressure cell. All these are widely accepted and widely used by the people. Definitely some of the sensors are not precisely manufactured, or we can say otherwise. So there is a need or dearth of manufacturers in India to manufacture this kind of instrument. But at the same time, the type of R&D facility which the manufacturer should have, the type of budgetary which the manufacturer should have, and the requirement. Okay, all these three things if are there, then only people will venture into that area. Otherwise, no one will like to enter into the field of instrument manufacturing. And if that is the case, everyone has to procure from the abroad only. Okay, so that is why many of the countries are very well manufacturing. For example, Japan or Germany, China. These are the countries in which large amount of sensors are being manufactured, and they are the worldwide exporters. But the complete idea behind that is, if there is a need, people will manufacture it. If there is a user, they will be manufacturing it. If no one is going to use it, who will manufacture it? It is better that they will buy from outside through some agency.
Okay.
you very much.
Okay. We have with us presence of Engineer Hitesh Desai. He is chairman of the Indian Geotechnical Society Surat chapter. I request him to say few words.
Sir, I have a question first of all.
Okay. Pratiti, but you can ask this
Yes,
question.
thank you very much, sir, for opportunity. Sir, good morning. I am Pratiti Bhatt. It is very informative session for me because my research PhD topic is the geotechnical instrumentation. Sir, my question is the right now we use the pile foundation in load cell and strain gauge instrument. Which in other than which instrument we use and which parameter they get?
Please repeat your question. There was some disturbance.
Okay, sir, my question is that right now in pile foundation, we use the
Mhm.
load cell and strain gauge, right?
Okay.
Other than which instruments we used and which parameter they get.
So what is the purpose of, first of all, what is the problem you are working on? That is important. So
Sir,
whether you,
right now in India, we use the load cell. I
right?
am job in the supercell, which the pile foundation testing company, and it is the working on the load cell and strain gauge.
Mhm.
So an additional parameter I have get regarding the temperature or the other strain or etc. So which type of instrument I used for that?
See, probably we need to see what are the parameters which you are willing to monitor. If, for example, you want to measure the earth pressure, then there are a type of earth pressure cell which you need to connect on the periphery of the pile. If you want to find out the pore pressure, right? So the pore pressure sensors are to be caged in the protective uh, casing, and then you need to drive or you need to install your pile in such a way that if you want to study on, let us say, liquefiable soil condition and what is the behavior of pile foundation. So in that case, this pore pressure transducer would help you to understand what is the pore pressure generated at the place of installation, right? So depending on what is your purpose of using the instrument, we need to choose the instrument, and depending on what is the range of measurement you feel to be appropriate. So definitely in the field, the condition, the loadings are different, the materials are different. In the laboratory, we generally work with the idealized type of condition and material, for example sands, and that is also manufactured sands. So in that condition, the uh, in output which we get may be qualitative many a time in nature, but if the same thing, a same system is being used in the field, there may be some other uncertainty which may come into the existence. For example, changes in the groundwater table, changes in the soil type, and if there is for example some other thing which are not considered, it may also affect the way the sensor is working. So in the laboratory or in the field, when we talk about any sensor, forget about any pile foundation or forget about any measurement, you need to first of all decide on what derivables you have to achieve. Okay, once you first of all find out that, then what is the range in which you want to do the measurements, that once second part is done, and third part is how you can optimize on the number of sensor, what are the location at which you must find out the things, and what are the location at which optional measurement is there. So all those things are to be sort of understood first, and then based on what is your objective of doing the experimentation on a pile foundation, you can choose on the sensor. So I cannot say that you should use this sensor or you should that sensor. Definitely there is a large range of sensors which can be used, but what is to be understood is that what you want to get out of that exercise. Okay, so people have used varieties of sensor at varieties of location. Okay, so that is what I can say in general. If any of you have any doubt, my email ID would be there. You can drop me a mail and I'll try to discuss about any of such queries which you
Yes,
have.
we have with us Dr. Avi Kumar Mandal.
Yes.
Can you unmute yourself, Amit Kumar Mandal?
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, good morning. Good morning. It is
Good
quite-
morning. How are you, Amit Kumar Mandal?
I am fine, sir. What about you, sir?
Yes, fine.
So
Is
it is
it
nice
possible to keep your video on?
Sir, actually, I have some problem in the video.
No problem.
Bandwidth.
You wanted to say something and you wrote in the chat box.
Yes. This is basically,
Based on
sir,
the one of the participants' questions, so I request you to brief the things.
yeah. Actually, sir, it was very interesting, comprehensive, and truly useful session. That's why I wanted to attend it, even though yesterday night I returned back from one of our project site. But the thing is that basically, since being a practicing professional, what we used to face the problem, we mostly use this type of geotechnical instrumentation, load cells, strain gauges, mostly in different kinds of foundation load test, whether it is a static, dynamic, and as well as in case of ground improvement programs, when we use do some vertical drain techniques, stone column, PVD ground improvement, and other than that, there are very limited use practically in projects, because sir, it involves money as well as time, which usually very few of our clients in our country presently appreciate the fact. What they bother the final outcome of even though it is very much required, as we all know, being a geotechnical professional and mostly adopted in all detailed refined research study. But until unless it is a very special project, like what we did it in Cochin port connectivity, where marine soil deposits was there, Visakhapatnam port connectivity, Paradip port connectivity, where we have used it in ground improvement programs, this different kind of instrumentation, and we got quite a good amount of results, what we have interpreted, and we have checked it from our anticipated behavior, what we did it in design. And most frequently in case of load test, we used to do it, as we all know, because particularly in case of dynamic load test of foundation, other than instrumentation, you cannot get the behavior. It is mandatory. In case of static load test, usually we used to do the top-down loading method. So in that case, the pile load deflection behavior is the final outcome. But if anybody wants to separate out the pile capacity in case of skin friction, end bearing, then definitely it is needed, particularly for rationalization of design and all these things. And if we do the bidirectional type of load test, static load test, in that case it is a mandatory. Other than that, you will not get the behavior of pile. But except these two special cases, particularly load test, foundation load test and ground improvement, other cases are very limited use. In case of Adiwal, what Professor Dave stated is very, very appropriate. But thing is that, sir, until unless it is a special project, now client will not appreciate to incorporate all these things. They will tell we are not doing any research or type of activity. So they will not appreciate. And if there is any unwanted behavior like bulging of things, in that case we used to put the kilometers to see how much extent of bulging and strain gauges, and that is a very special cases. But anyway, these things to be awareness to be made even to the client, because until unless it is been incorporated in the project technical specification, appreciating the fact of its necessity and importance, practical application of those things will be very much limited, and it will be restrained on only will be within the research study. That is my observation, sir. Otherwise, the session is very useful. I am very much benefited from that, and whatever knowledge we have it based on that, because there is a good book on Houseman on geotechnical instrumentation, as we know. But definitely it is highlighted all the facts in very detailed manner, particularly the functioning of different kind of geotechnical instruments. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, we are receiving the feedback that it is an excellent session and very informative, very lucid presentation. Lots of chat box. We have been received lots of messages in the chat box. I request Professor Robinson to say a few words here from IIT Madras.
Thank you, sir. It is an excellent presentation. So I enjoyed right from the beginning till the end. Even the discussions are very informative. The presentation is excellent. The type of instruments, not only the types, within the short time, he also brought in some fundamentals of it, so that everybody understands what he is talking about. So probably this sort of chapter may consider some case studies using the instruments as a follow-up of this. So having known the fundamentals and the types of instruments, if you can identify a speaker who can give from the industry or academicians who are involved in the projects, with the application of these instruments, that will kind of complete this topic. I request for that. Thank you very much, Dr. Dave, for the excellent presentation, and the participants also for bringing in some of the important questions that further strengthened the talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Robinson. Dr. Ravi Sundaram is here. Okay. I request Engineer Hitesh Desai to say a few words here. You need to.
I think Mr. Rafi had some question. If Mr. Rafi is there, still there?
Yes, sir.
You had a.
I'm still there.
Yes. If you want to ask, you ask.
Sir, I
complete this.
Sir, I have completed, sir. Third question also I have completed because they have permitted me.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Trudip ji. And actually, I will congratulate Dr. Solanki and our Chinwal, so that for selecting this topic. Actually, nowadays there is a trend to show bigger and bigger and bigger. But for the lower class, or means not class, means for the undergraduate and up to postgraduate, some things basic are required from the field, and that is how this topic was selected. So I congratulate Dr. Solanki for selecting this topic, and congratulate Daveji to give him the full justice for this topic. And as Robinson Saab has rightly pointed out, that for the further extension of this can be done, and thanks for your suggestions, and we will look into it. And if you have some suggestions regarding some field experienced people, you can suggest this. We will welcome for this. And for this, I hope that this must have given the good benefit to the students, particularly undergraduate and postgraduate student. And that is the basic, or that was the theme, to help the students. And that is why from the students chapter, such type of topics will be covered by Surat chapter in future also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Hitesh Desai. We have with us Dr. Jitesh Chauhan. He is a part of the organizing committee. I request him to summarize the session and conclude the session.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Solanki. This is Dr. Jitesh Chawda here, and I want to summarize the presentation. I want to conclude on that. So thank you, Dr. Dave, for covering this very important topic, that is geotechnical instrumentations. He has covered about the different sensors which are used to measure the strains, how to measure the pressures, loads, displacement. Then he has covered all the instrumentations on accelerometers, inclinometers, fiber optic sensors. Then he has also covered about like a very minute, very important observations, that how can we avoid the measurements error which is due to the length of the cables. Then because of the temperature, we can use two sensors. For that we can avoid the temperature effect. How to nullify that? Then he has talked about the pressure cells which are used for measurement of pressures behind the earth walls, retaining walls, and so on. Then thermistors, inclinometers, and he has talked about how the accelerometers works, and he has covered everything quite in detail. And at the end, he gave this 25 key links. The way he has summarized this presentation with 25 key links to successfully adopt these instrumentations in the field measurements. And I would like to mention this gives us a motivation to think in a few other directions for all the researchers, practitioners, students, and academicians, that what is the optimum number of instruments which are required to be adopted in the field measurements. It can be laboratory measurements, it can be health monitoring, it can be used for development of some theories. Then what is the sensitivity, what is the precise, what is the accuracy, We need to verify what are the measurements which we are getting. Then, whatever the class of problem could be, it could be geotechnical problem, it could be water resource problem, it could be structural problem. What are the different class of instruments which are used to be that particular problem? Then what could be the possible, errors? So all those directions we get it. Some of the participants have asked about the non-contact based measurement technique. So sir has covered about the laser measurement technique, and there is one more measurement technique that is nowadays very useful, that is image based measurement technique, that is based on PIV measurement technique, in which we can quantify the displacements. We also need to think about, like, what is the performance of all the sensors based on the environment conditions, based on the centrifuge environment condition, whether the harsh weather conditions, especially when we are talking about the health monitoring, what is the moisture content effect, what is the temperature effect, serviceability point of view, repeatability point of view, can the same sensors or instruments can be used repeated number of times? Then we need to think in this direction, that what is the data acquisitions which are required. And rightly said by Professor Robinson about, like, whatever Dave sir has covered, it was very much in detail how these instruments are working. However, if we are able to have some talks which is related to the case studies, it would be a wonderful, a complete icing on the cake if we are able to even cover the case studies. So I thank Dr. Dave for covering all these parts quite very much in detail, and I've observed the interaction which is was observed between the participants and the experts over here. So it was wonderful. So with this, I thank, and with this I conclude. And
Sir, I want to add one thing, that for the projects in parts, that is for development. So some of our government big projects are there, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. In that, actually, this instrumentation it should be must. Then for the stage 2 or part 2, the advantage of the reading of instrumentation of the stage 1 can be used. So we are likely to get economy, and if not economy, we are sure of our safety. So instrumentation of this, and I request even to the small organizers, those who are also going for these projects in parts. Say one big project is there, 8 multi-story building of now 18-20 floors. So if they are going to build in a two sets, then at least for the first they should have this instrumentation, so that they can get the advantage of this instrumentation for the rest of their building. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you all, and we end this session. I thank you, Dr. Trudip Dave, for the excellent presentation and your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you all, and having a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for
Thank you. Goodbye to all.
our invitation to deliver the lecture, sir. Thank you.
We end this session and we close this session. Thank you.